All right, we're live. You know, there's always these situations in life when you run into somebody who is broken ceilings. Is testimony to the fact that the world is a much more even place to live. And Shalini Prakash, who's here with me today, uh, is certainly testimony to the power of women and what they can do in the world. And when you feel fully confident and fully inspired. So you're an inspiration, Shalini. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Raju. It's my pleasure, and thank you for that kind introduction.
Right. So I'm going to introduce you to in the podcast in the intro, but I still like to just tell the listeners who you are.
Yeah, sure. I live in India. I live in Bangalore, and I'm an engineer by qualification. The last 7 8 years or so has been mostly in the venture capital and startup ecosystem, where I work with several early stage entrepreneurs and founders. Previously, I worked for funds like 500 Startups, which is a value based fund, where I've led India investments and portfolio. And the last year or so has been me running my own startup platform called Purple Matter, through which I invest and also work with early stage founders on their startup journey, and I run leadership programs for them. And yeah, this is a bit about what I'm doing.
Oh, that's wonderful. Shalini, your success thus far as an investor, as you said, an author, your book came out last year or early this year, Clueless at 30, an entrepreneur, as you just said, to be recognized as a thought leader across multiple platforms and, impressive 40 under 40, top woman investor. So through stories, because people like to hear stories, how you did what you did, can you tell them how you did what you ended up you doing today? Of course, we all don't know when we begin and the journey goes where it goes, but what's your story? Take us back to where your fascination with business began.
Well, I come from a business family myself. My parents they run a large landscaping company here out of India, and I've sort of grown up with the business talk and so on, right? And but I wouldn't necessarily say that that's where my interest started. But yes, there was some knowledge and some base around it. And like most Indian families, at least South Indian families,
Mm-hmm.
until like say 15 years ago, right? I mean, engineering, medicine, these were the preferred professions that their child had to pick, and I came from one of those families. So I always knew I was going to be an engineer, or a doctor, and I chose engineering. I graduated and I started off my career with Fidelity Investments, and as an engineer, and it was great, and it was a good start. I was earning pretty well, and so on. But I think there was this time where I always knew I wanted to do something more, but I didn't know what that was. And so what I did was I went and did my master's. I changed my jobs a couple of times, sometimes into completely unknown industries and so on. So, but I think what eventually sort of really interested me was giving birth to an idea and let it sort of take shape, right? And I was really fascinated by the whole idea of creation and building from scratch, and I knew that I wanted to be a part of it. Now there are two ways to be a part of it, where you can be a founder yourself, if you have an idea, you can go build it, or you can always be on the other side of the table as an investor, especially as an early stage investor, because there's so much more you need to do. Because venture capital or venture investing is not, especially in early stage, is not as important as venture building. So I really like to see myself playing a role there. So yeah, through working with different startup funds, it enabled me to sort of be a part of the venture building process for several early stage entrepreneurs, and that's what really excited me. So yeah, so to answer your question, Raju, I think it took me about 5 or 6 years in my early 20s to sort of figure out this what I wanted to do, and yeah, and I made that jump.
Wow. So, it's no secret that we all learn from challenges that we go through in life or traumas or even failures. And then they become pivotal points for, in our lives to say when you look back and say, oh my God, look, if that hadn't happened and this wouldn't happen, right? So can you speak to perhaps a couple of those turning points in your life? You're still very young, so it's just whatever you know at this point. What's been
Um,
turning
I
point
think,
for you?
sure, sure. I think several different turning points. I mean, it may not necessarily have been like a big career jump. So the first that comes to my mind was, I remember this is back in 2014, where I was, undergoing a little bit of existential crisis or identity crisis, and uh, and while I knew that I wanted to do something different, and I didn't want to be in engineering consulting, I didn't want to sort of be an engineer or be a software engineer anymore. So in 2014, I remember I
Mm-hmm.
chose to do a year of just be a yes man, like just say yes to any interesting opportunity that comes your way. And I consulted with a
Mm-hmm.
startup which is now one called InMobi. I also consulted with an accelerator called Target Accelerator through another accelerator called Chiron. I was in EIR with GSM. So there are like multiple gigs that I decided to take without questioning. Where is this going to go? What am I going to do? There were four or five things that I was trying to do in parallel during that transition time because I was experimenting. And the funny thing is, it somehow, although it seemed all disconnected, it all sort of started coming together in the year 2015. And that I would say was one of the turning points, where I decided to just say yes and not think too much, not really think of the end outcome, but just do for the adventure or the joy or for the joy of learning
Mm-hmm.
or experiencing something new. I think that was definitely one turning point. And the second one is, when I decided to write the book, because I am no writer, or I don't come from that world, and it is something that I really wanted to
Mm-hmm.
talk about, which is identity crisis, because a lot of young millennials, all of us have the problem of abundance, right? I mean, we have abundant opportunities. We probably also have a little bit of cushioning in terms of financial resources and so on, right? So I think in terms of what young people want, and do we really know what we want, is something that I've been very curious about, and I've never been able to answer this question of what is your
Mm-hmm.
passion, right? Somebody says, what is that one thing that you want to do? I've never been able to answer this question, and
Sure.
I've always struggled. I struggle with it even today. So I was very curious about it, and I wanted to write about it,
Mm-hmm.
especially for people who don't know. And then it is funny when you realize that 80% of the people around you actually don't know what their passion is or what is it that they're meant to do. And everyone's sort of figuring out. And it doesn't matter if they're 20, 30, or 40, but everyone's still figuring out. So I wanted to talk about it, and that eventually led me to write a book. I didn't think I was going to get a book deal and go through this whole process, but I did. And I think that was definitely a turning point for me.
Well, congratulations. I mean, you still, I've read parts of the book. I'm going to be very honest. Haven't finished it yet. There's so many books all around us, right? So, but yes, so so what does the book tend to convey? That there is all these choices, and we don't make up our mind. I mean, I'm still in my 60s, and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. So we all have, we move through stages in life, and you realize it's not just about your career, right? So the discussion we're having here is really about the one person who's a mother, has a career, has all these things, right? So we're all one person, one body. So in the messaging of the clueless at 30, is it really targeted only at millennials, or is it just for anybody? As you said, most of us trying to figure out what we want to do and who
Oh,
we want to be.
no, it's for everybody. It's for everybody. And the book actually is not like a cheat sheet or tips on how to be unclueless, or no, it's nothing to do with that actually. So the how I've written this book is also, I've divided the book into four parts. Starting about our initial dilemma,
Mm-hmm.
right, which
Yeah.
which is what I call the phase one, which is FOMO, which is fear of missing out, which most of us know. So it's about the anxieties and the social pressures, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, my friends like coming in this 30 and the
Of
30
course.
list, or your parents telling you about how everyone's getting ahead of you and you're feeling stuck and left behind, and you have no clue where your career is headed or where your life's headed. So I talk about all of that in phase one, which is in FOMO. Then I move to phase two, which is called SOBO, which is um, you know really search, or when you're in search of better options. So how do you really break free from that FOMO phase, right? And you
Hmm.
sort of jump into the other side to explore.
Right.
And what you actually realize when you're also on the other side is that, the grass is always greener on the other side, right? But then when you're there, you realize that, you are there are so many firsts that you experience, like, uh, you know, for the first time you're standing on stage, or first time you're making this pitch, or there are so many fears that are associated with it, right? But you come to realize that when you want something better, when you're clueless and you want something better for yourself, you have to go through that journey. You have to put yourself into that confusion or that pain to sort of see yourself come out brighter and stronger and better. So that's the sobo phase. And then I talk about the third stage, which is the jomo phase, which is really the joy of the jolo phase, which is the joy of letting go. Basically letting go of all the things that's really holding us back. It could be belief systems to or the societal pressure, and all of that is really holding us back, because we think we put so much emphasis on where our lives headed, or what everybody around us would think or judge us for it. And then you realize that nobody actually cares about what you're going through, because everyone has their own shit, right? I mean, that they have to deal with. And but we lay so much emphasis on that. It's
Yep.
all about really so
Exactly.
unburdening yourself and taking off that load from your shoulder, and sort of letting it all go, and not carrying that baggage on your shoulder. And the fourth part is really the mofo phase, which is moving forward, right? I mean, when you don't know what is it that you want to do, you just keep moving forward. I spoke about the yes man phase that I went, actually. It's sort of um, is an example to that. And I also talk about a specific topic called find your slash in the fourth phase, which is mofo phase. What essentially it really means is, um, when you don't know what is that one thing that you want to do, go be four things or go be five things, right? Don't wait for that one thing to happen and there's no sign that someone will show, and for you to sort of say, hey, this is my passion and this is what I'm going to do. But just keep doing anything that sort of rocks your boat, or catches your fancy, right? Like, just keep doing it, because
Mhm.
that's how you build your identity capital, right? It's all these experiences and learnings that you collect along the way, which sort of really shapes you as a human being or even as a professional. Like, for example, if you want to be a successful wildlife photographer, you need to understand wildlife slash ecology slash art slash tech slash all these slashes that you need to collect to sort of
Mhm.
give you that unique perspective as a photographer. So because you've collected these experiences and learnings through different ways. So the idea is, yeah, when you don't know what is that one thing you want to do, go five things, and that's maybe how a clueless person should live. And that's essentially what I'm saying.
That's wonderful. That's, it all resonates because ultimately what's happening right now is what's going to shape your life. And if you live in the past or the future, you don't know the future, right? But listening to you, and I think it's pretty common that we all identify with our careers more than anything else, right, in life, as to who we want to be outside, and therefore the doing is what takes over our life. So speak to okay, so people when they meet you, that's it's all you're an investor, you're this, you're that in the world of business and finance. Who are you really? If somebody were to ask you, like,
I
okay,
think
Shalini, is it about being in the world and doing stuff all the time? But who are you?
I think I'm a catalyst. I like to play,
Mm.
I like to enable things to happen, right? I mean, it could be through different forms where, say, if you're coaching someone, right, you're sort of, you're a navigator, right? I mean, you're trying to navigate people's journey or their careers or whatever it is that they're trying to figure out. Or even through venture capital, right? I mean, I don't see myself as an investor at all. I mean, I see myself more as someone who's sort of playing a role in shaping that venture for them, right? So yeah, I think I would see myself more like as a catalyst or a navigator.
Wonderful. And clearly, you cannot accomplish all that you have, in these short years, unless you're ambitious and bold. All right. So everything, as you know that everything I do is bold, conscious leadership. Everything is about being bold and conscious in ways that because it's life is a learning experience, similar to what you're saying. Now, there's nothing new under the sun because people have come and gone and been through this. left us a lot of wisdom, and we're all just sort of collectively collecting that wisdom and becoming more and more aware of what's possible, right? So, what does it mean when I ask you, what does it mean for you to be bold?
I think it means that, sometimes it's just about following your convictions and not being really afraid of the end outcome, right? Um, as cliched as it may
Mm,
sound, right? I mean, initially, when you want to do something very different, or you want to sort of turn your life upside down, right? I mean, there are not too many cheerleaders for you, right? There are a lot of naysayers around you. So for me, it's about really following your conviction and sort of seeing it through till the end. You win, you fail, but that's a bold decision. So for me, that's what bold would mean.
right. Excellent. What about the word consciousness? What does that mean to you?
Uh, I would say like having complete awareness about yourself, right? It could be your emotions or whatever it is that you're going through, right? I think
Mm.
I think that's what you know consciousness would mean. I think having complete awareness of your decision or how you think and what really triggers you or what really moves you, and having that good understanding is consciousness for me.
And needless to say, that comes from some kind of practice, right? Every day we do something because we have practices, habits. Are there practices and habits or some senses of, I don't want to use the word discipline because that's always misunderstood as, you know, you got to do things against the grain. No, what is it that keeps you, whether it's aware, more grounded, and to make sure that you don't, don't lose sight of your convictions and therefore be more bold, in the world, because ultimately if you're a catalyst and you're making the difference to your initiatives and ventures and juggling a million things in life, it needs something. Doesn't mean it's perfect. Life is not perfect, but so what are some of those things, maybe two or three things that you do on a daily basis?
I think one definitely is for a very long time. I've been reading a lot, right? I read a lot to sort of
Mm,
and I read a lot about various topics. It could be from I went through this phase of spirituality to leadership to learning human behavior and so on, right? I think one is
mm,
one is definitely that, because I think a lot of this you sort of not just apply to yourself. Some of these lessons also sort of helps you assessing situations in your everyday life, right? You start observing people around you more, and it could be a founder or an
mm,
executive, or even like normal people around you, right? I think it sort of gives you that unique lens. That is one. And the second thing that I really do is I love meeting people, and I think that is my gateway to learning everything that's outside there, or happening outside in the world. Because and it need not necessarily be to do with technology or your work, right? I mean, it could be anything. And I've always enjoyed meeting people, and I think conversations really inspire me um, to do better and to learn from each other. So I think these are two things that I do. I meet a lot of people. I like to read, um, and I wish I was meditating as much as I'd have liked. I don't, but that's something that I've recently started and still exploring that phase.
awesome. So I'm going to go back to some couple of earlier points that you made, and also the question I was asking about, the traumas and the failures of our lives. It could be in the form of a deal that went sour, or it could be something else that stays with you, and then it becomes pivotal. I talked about turning points earlier, and so let's stick to the world of, perhaps, the world you live in, which is venture. There maybe a story or two that you're really proud of, that, like, wow, this amazing venture went well because you were the catalyst to support it and the founder and help them. And then one, perhaps the other side, where venture the venture game is always about, what do they say, one is a 10 bagger, they're happy. I'm talking about the venture capitalists now. 10 is to 1 ratio, the 9 will not do anything, 1 will succeed. But when you're so close, you're trying to nurture a business, nurture the founder's dream, and you're helping them to move forward. You must have had experiences. So can you without name any, of course, anyone, just have you had that one big one and the one sort of like, that went sour?
Yeah, I think I can think of two, at the top of my head. So one is, I think, so especially in India, when you look at investing, at least say 4 5 years ago, right? I mean, there was so many startups that were mushrooming, which were essentially aping the West, right? I mean, it could be Uber for India or
Mm-hmm.
Amazon for India, and so on, right? I
Right.
mean, these were the popular investment areas, and there were a couple of bets that I made, especially in health tech, biotech. Um, which needs a lot of patient capital, and there was not so much available, right? I mean, these are not
Yes.
considered investable spaces. And to my
Mm-hmm.
luck, there were two investments, and both of them are doing extremely well. In fact, there was this one Indian startup, very recently, was the first Indian health tech startup to get an FDA approval. So I think,
Mm-hmm.
like these bets were made 5 years ago, 6 years ago, right? You don't know where this is headed. So I think um, one is the ability to sort of follow through that conviction or that thesis, right? I mean, and believing in the founder is one thing, and the second thing is, you're enabling a lot of this with the ecosystem players itself, right? I mean, it could be with the health ministry or whoever, right? I mean, who can help them in the initial days, or with even the connections where they're forming, that they needed in the US or in India. I think I was able to successfully do that to both in their early stages. And and as most people say that, during your best days, I think you know you can get a lot of access to capital and so on, but in your bad days, there are not too many investors, even your current investors around, right? So I think, just sort of
Yeah.
being there for that, and just sort of seeing this journey through them, right? I think has also sort of taught me a lot about entrepreneurship, and I would say
Mm-hmm.
that I have sort of contributed to some degree where they are today, and that's something that I'm really proud of. And the other thing
Mm-hmm.
is, what's gone completely down south is, there was, at least very early in my days, there was this one investment that I made, and you make a commitment, and then you start realizing, as you start spending more and more time with the founder, that this isn't going to go well, and sometimes you're caught in between, but you still do it because you've given a verbal commitment, and then I didn't pull out when I did have to, and I didn't, and I went through with it because I gave my word, and things went down. There was this founder breakup. The team were not working. It was like an ugly marriage, right? so
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so yeah, sometimes you're not listening to your gut feeling,
Got.
and yeah,
Mm.
yeah, I think sometimes it works, right? I think it does work, and that is one
Mm.
one investment. It's not just the money is one part of it, right? And then you have clients, and they have employees working, and this ugly divorce, and everything's getting split, and like all of that, right? And when you really didn't think somebody
Mm.
was going to be able to lead the company, don't do it, right? Like, don't do that deal, or don't be a part of it. So I think that's
Right.
one deal for me, one learning for me as well.
Mm. Well, again, oh my God, this is the kind of stuff that people who are still probably with us listening. If there's a lesson to be learned, is what that your intuition and your gut is very important, and the more you listen to those things, because you're going to make a decision one way or the other, and then the gut tells you one thing, you know you you ought to follow it. That doesn't mean we won't make mistakes in life, right? So I think that's a great example. Is there anything that people, you're pretty popular, people know who you are, a thought leader and all that. Is there anything that people might not know about you that you care to share?
uh I used to be a national badminton player, so I played for junior India. So that's one thing that I don't think many people know
Oh,
about.
wow.
Yeah, very few people, but yeah,
Mhm.
that's
Awesome.
and I'm actually also an artist. I love painting, and I've been doing that for almost 20 years now, and it goes in spikes. It's like up and down. There's no consistency in my in my artwork. But yeah, I think that's something that I love doing. And
Mhm.
I also, have like friends and stuff who commission art for, their office or their home, and that's something that I do when I have the time.
And you do that.
Sorry.
Wow. So I could just see that you're going to unleash more of you as life goes on. Clearly, more things are coming out.
No, I mean
Right?
it's not. I mean
All
it's
this
not
hidden.
something that I do professionally, but yeah, it's something that I really enjoy. And for me, art.
Mhm.
The funny thing is, I also pick up, the paintbrush when I'm in transition. It's something that I have seen as a pattern in myself. When I'm transitioning careers or when I'm at certain crossroads, I think that's when I actually pick up the paintbrush, because I think maybe it is a very very
Mhm.
meditative state for me. It sort of really transcends me to like a different world
Mhm.
or a different universe.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that's actually when I pick up a paintbrush.
That's awesome. Wow. So we're gonna wait to hear more from Shalini, I'm sure, in the future. Guys who are still listening to this. So talk about perhaps one or two leadership lessons that you've learned. You've touched on a few, but just to kind of summarize it, what would be, if I'm a founder of a company and I'm struggling, not sure where to go, you keep running out of money, you know, maybe you haven't cooked the idea fully, whatever it may be. What are the one or two leadership lessons related to this venture side that you would leave with these people listening to us?
Sure. I think one is, I think a lot of people underestimate the importance of communication. I don't want to use the word storytelling, maybe storytelling if you're fundraising, but when you're trying to build a team, um, having effective
Mhm.
communication with your team, or even at the process of building your team, is very very important, and having the clarity is very very important. And the second one is, when you're building an organization, I think having high EQ or even empathy is very important. And I don't know how much of it you're able to cultivate like overnight, and but it is something that I think over a period of time becomes very very important if you want to be a strong leader. And the other thing
Hmm.
is, I think it's always about walking the talk, right? I think all of us talk about being disciplined or um, going by the book or whatever, right? I think the best way to lead is, you leading as an example yourself, right? As a leader of the organization, you sort of walk the talk.
Mhm. Right.
I think that's when actually people really look up to you as an individual or as a leader. So I think these are a few things that are definitely important, and
Mm.
especially, I mean, when you talk at least about Series A, B type of investments, and these things become even more important. I mean, of course, the numbers do matter, all the metrics do matter, but eventually, you're also looking at the founder as somebody who who can be a potential leader, right? So these softer
Mhm.
aspects become equally
Exactly.
important.
Hmm. All right. So here we have an example of a bold, conscious leader. And so, Shalini, thanks for being with us. And I'm sure, as I said, we'll hear more about you. Maybe you'll come back and we'll do a slightly different focus discussion, maybe about your art, maybe about some more books that you're about to publish. Who knows? So, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you being here. And if there's anything last minute you want to say to anybody, because we'll in the show notes we'll talk about where to find you. Uh, is there a particular place they would like people to contact? Oh, before I go, I want to know about the purple. Is it Purple Matter? Is that what you're calling it? And did I catch that this is more focused on women, or that's not necessarily the case?
Oh no, it's not focused on women. It's focused for no, it's for everyone. Yeah, there are a few programs that are women focused, but the platform itself is for everyone. I mean, I invest in any founder who I think is passionate and building something interesting, and also programs are open for everyone.
So can you just give us one couple of sentences about what Purple Matter does, and where, if you want people to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Sure. I mean, so people can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn and quite accessible on LinkedIn. Purple Matter is a platform. platform through which I do my investing, and early stage investing. These could be syndicates and so on. Another part of what I do through this platform is also run programs, leadership programs for founders, or it could be like MVP programs for growth stage startups and so on. So yeah, it's both. It's there's an investing side and there's like a community side in terms of programs and so on.
Awesome. So yeah, that's great. So we'll put that in the show notes so people can find you. Thanks again, Shalini, and I hope to see you soon.